Normally, you should all have a message warning you that this meeting is going to go live. So you just have to say that you agree with this.
Okay, we can start.
Shall we?
Yeah, we can start.
So, welcome to all. Thank you to all my colleagues and my friends to have joined this side event, which is organized by Global Tamil Movement in partnership with Bharati Centre Culturel Franco-Tamil based in France, and also World Women Solidarity Association, which is also based in France and which is now functioning for more than 4 years. Even though the outcome of our association is just being now diffused generally, because we have been doing many things, many women rights activism events quite in a secret way, because we wanted to keep this away the people concerned by this, away from some problems and troubles that could have been occurred in Sri Lanka. So I am really thankful to its president, Mrs. Merenich Prabhakaran, who will be joining us in some minutes. Because she's at work now, because she has been tremendous support for me and for some other women who are in this field, trying to bring some hope for for other women who are not much as much lucky as we are. So I have to also tell you that this event is has to be seen as a side event, really, because normally, as you know, in the United Nations Human Rights Council, we are now assisting, if we can say that, to the 47th Human Rights Council ordinary session, which has started on the 21st of June and which will be finishing on the 15th of July this next month. So normally this type of event, we have already done it inside the UN premises. Unfortunately, during this corona crisis, some of our side events are being done via Zoom, or even we can say fortunately also, because at least we can see each other by this way. So despite this crisis, so why I'm saying this is because we want to publish this event as a booklet, and we want to be able to send it to the United Nations treaty bodies and special procedure mandate holders as well as to the parliamentarians across the 193 all countries across the world, and to all the ambassadors in Geneva, Brussels, and New York. So at the end of this event, may I ask all of you, at least the speakers, to send your presentation in a written format and to our email, which will be given by me or Bosco in this discussion section. We will give you the email so that you can send it before 27th of June, so as to make it possible. So to introduce this event, I'll say that in January 2011, the UN General Assembly unanimously designated 23rd of June as the annual International Widows' Day. And this year topic of the International Widows' Day is Invisible Women, Invisible Problems. Although accurate information is very limited concerning this subject, it has been estimated that there are some 258 million widows around the world, and nearly 1 in 10 live in extreme poverty. We're going to focalize our side event today on the human rights situation of war widows under foreign occupation. Once widowed, women in many countries often are confronting a denial of inheritance and land rights, degrading and life-threatening, forcibly mourning and burial rights, and other forms of widow abuse. But the women under military occupation even face worst forms of human rights violation. In many countries, widowhood is stigmatized and seen as a source of shame. Widows are thought to be cursed in some cultures and are even associated with witchcraft. Such misconceptions can lead to widows being ostracized, abused, and even worse. The children of widows are often affected both emotionally and economically. Widowed mothers, now supporting their families alone, are forced to withdraw children from schools and to rely on their labor. Moreover, the daughters of widows may suffer multiple deprivation, increasing their vulnerability to abuse. Such cruelties are often seen as justified in terms of cultural or religious practice. Impunity for abuse of the rights of widow is rife, with few perpetrators ever successfully brought to justice. Even in countries where legal protection is more inclusive, widows can suffer social marginalization. International Widows' Day is an opportunity for action towards achieving full rights and recognition for widows, too long invisible, uncounted, and ignored. The dearth of reliable hard data remains one of the major obstacles to developing the policies and programs to address the poverty, violence, and discrimination suffered by widows. There is a need for more research and statistics disaggregated by marital status, sex, and age in order to help reveal the incidents of widow abuse and illustrate the situation of widows. In post-conflict situation, widows should be brought in to participate fully in peace building and reconciliation process to ensure that they contribute to sustainable peace and security. Empowering widows through access to adequate healthcare, education and decent work, full participation in decision making and public life, and lives free of violence and abuse would give them a chance to build a secure life after bereavement. Importantly, creating opportunities for widows can also help to protect their children and avoid the cycle of intergenerational poverty and deprivation. The Tamil women suffer most from the consequences of the genocidal war that shook Sri Lanka for at least 30 years and over 70 years of occupation by Sinhala security forces. 12 years after the end of the Sri Lanka's armed conflict, Elam Tamil women in the island's north and east areas are still seeking justice and truth for wartime violations. The Sri Lankan government made a promise to the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2015, including a truth commission, a special court, and offices to investigate missing persons and provide reparations. And they have failed to materialize even as the urgent economic and psychosocial needs of all conflicts affected groups remain unmet. In addition to sexual violence committed in refugee camps at the end of the conflict in 2008 and 9, about over 1,300,000 inhabitants in the northeast provinces were forced to flee. The greatest drama for women is widowhood in a largely were forced to flee. I'm just lost in my words. In a largely patriarchal society, there are an estimated 110,000 war widows in the northern part and east of Sri Lanka. These figures do not appear to include wives of those missing and disappeared. According to one estimate, 58,000 households in the north accounting for a quarter of the population, are headed by women. In addition to the psychological and psychiatric wounds of war, widows face economic difficulties, social stigma, and collapse of traditional support structures in a torn society. So I'm extremely sorry for a very long introduction, because these things have to be said before we go into this event. I'm grateful to Bosco for having given me these numbers, which were quite astonishing to read and to realize that women are facing such large amount of women are facing so many troubles. For this event, we have speakers all around the world, and we are very thankful and grateful to have them with us today. Our first speaker will be Reverend Dr. Gerald Jumban from Southern Cameroon. He is currently a professor of theology in the Pontifical University of St. Thomas in Rome. He has published a very important book on the independence struggle of the Southern Cameroon, and this book is entitled Independence or Nothing, the Theology of Self-Determination in the Southern Cameroon. So may we have Dr. Gerald Jumban for his first intervention. The floor is yours,
Doctor. Thank you very much for the introduction. I didn't know really I would be the beginner, but anyhow, I was already told I would present, so I begin. Thank you, and I just want to thank the organizers of this particular come together to honor our women, especially the widows, in this day that the United Nations Organization has given, that we think about them, we pray about them, and we talk about them. I like the way the presenter began. I mean, the very first statement about invisible women, invisible problems. And actually, that is what we are talking about today. I know we have already had an introduction, and we'll be hearing speakers talk about really the actual situations of our various nations about widows. I chose, and I think Dora will do that very well, about the Southern Cameroons. I chose to speak about something which is about widows, which I feel in the field of morality and in the field of theology, that is important that we highlight it. The first thing I like to say is that we, the freedom fighters, because we are actually freedom fighters for our people, the definition for me of a freedom fighter is that he is a religious man, a religious person, a religious woman, because we are talking about interpreting the sufferings of a people. We're talking about looking at metaphorically and looking at the parables of the sufferings of our people and seeing how we can also add value to to the lives of our people. That is why I want to look at widows from the context of the Southern Cameroon sufferings today. We know there is a war going on there now, a genocide actually, unleashed on us by the government of the Republic of Cameroon. Our young people, our fathers, the cream of our boys and men decided to defend their land. They are in trenches now. They're in the bushes now, the forests. In fact, what is going on now is what is called the guerrilla warfare, which they have decided to defend their land against the marauding military from the French Cameroon. This causes a problem of very great proportions. These are the husbands of women. These are the boyfriends of women. So we can even talk about widows, having in mind about women whose husbands are dead. But these are people who metaphorically, their husbands are dead. Metaphorically, their boyfriends are dead. They are living a type of solitude, a type of loneliness, which only someone who wears another's shoes can be able to acknowledge, to empathize, and to understand. I imagine uh, some of our women who have forcefully left our land to the French Cameroons, who are there, and they are considered as one country, but they are witnessing the husbands and the boyfriends of their so-called brothers, so-called sisters, moving around freely, living happy lives, going to bars, going to restaurants, going to beaches. The type of loneliness they live over there, the type of loneliness they live in Nigeria, the type of loneliness they live in the diaspora. Sometimes we talk, but we may not actually want to weigh up this. And it is very important in this day like this to think about that these are people whose husbands, whose boyfriends are dead. I consider it dead because even when the war finishes, when they are coming back to the land, it is a completely different story. I talk using the metaphor of Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela. The Nelson Mandela we have glorified him all over, who is a hero, a great man. Nelson Mandela, he did wonderful things, but Mandela confessed, he himself confessed one time that he has been a hero in many things, but he was a failure in having Winnie Mandela, keeping Winnie Mandela right to the end. Because of that loneliness, which Nelson Mandela witnessed in prison, because of that loneliness, that death of Nelson Mandela, which Winnie Mandela witnessed in Cape Town, he was forced into certain situations. And when things were bettered, Nelson Mandela was freely divorced Winnie Mandela, got the wife of Samora Machel, and they continued life. It was pain on Nelson Mandela, but I think the pain and the suffering and the troubles of Winnie Mandela were not looked upon. And during those times, Winnie Mandela was put in a light of a failure, of a deceiver, of a betrayer, a traitor. And Nelson Mandela was hailed high. But history always speaks. History gives us time. And today, the common South African, you ask them, Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela, they will tell you, the common South African black, the hero for them is Winnie Mandela. In fact, some of them even consider Nelson Mandela as a traitor of the sufferings of that. Because when Nelson Mandela came, he did wonderful things, but it looks like the Western world hyped his goodness. And what was spoken most was about reconciliation, not about truth, not about justice. The heart of the problem of the African black man in South Africa was the issue about land. And that issue was never handled. That is what Winnie Mandela stood for, because he had lived the situation when Nelson Mandela was in prison. I'm using this metaphor to let us know that what goes through when war is out there. We are out here in the diaspora. We are not rooted out of our people, because some of us too here, we surely have our husbands in other places, even back home, and we're not able to meet them. We surely have our wives back home, and we're not able to, even if we are able to live together here. The trouble that your cousin, your uncle, your aunt is going through is your trouble. And therefore, that's why I look at the problem of widows about our own people, the Southern Cameroons, as the problem of the woman, the Southern Cameroon woman today. I move on to say that there is nothing more important under heaven than a single human life. A single human life. And it is from that perspective that we begin to understand that the fight for the liberation of our people is the fight to see that people are free, people live, and people actually are able to live together. We're fighting on the side of the weak. This metaphor of the widow, I am not downplaying the issue about the widow as widow, but I'm letting us understand that our people who are exposed to certain situations, for example, the Southern Cameroonian in Yaoundé town, in Douala town, in the French Cameroons of that country called Cameroon, they are not living happy lives. Many have gone into prostitution. Many have gone into a certain type of living where you are doing work, and the price, the gift of, or which I cannot even say the reward of the work you are doing is determined by the slave owner. I'm bringing us to understand that it is the issue about power. Power in an African context, which also is found in a situation like we have now, in a context where there is male chauvinism, where there is patriarchy. That means the place of a woman is low down there. Not to talk of a woman that comes in and the woman is completely disarrayed. There is an issue here which I want also to highlight, which is the issue about the condition of the Southern Cameroon woman in the bushes, the forests, because most of them are already away from their homes, burnt homes and all that. The shootings, the traumatizations, the lack of medicines, the pregnancies in bushes where there are no hospitals. For me, that is living a life without, even if there is a husband, you are living a life of, or you are living a baseless life, a life of death. And that is what I think in a day like this, we should look into. The widows, the ladies who have lost their husbands, but also the ladies who have lost their husbands in war, maybe as military people, maybe as freedom fighters in places. I would like to finish up this presentation by indicating something which is very important that also we remind ourselves in, that the whole world should understand that people living this situation of women living in this widow-like type of situation, they find themselves in a case where they don't more understand love, in a case where they don't even understand empathy, they don't even understand goodness. What they want are these three words: justice, truth, and help. Justice, truth, and help. That is the age of a widow of the Southern Cameroonian today. And when I'm talking about the widow in the Southern Cameroons today, I repeat again, I'm not talking about somebody whose husband is dead. I'm talking about our young girls, our women who are without their husbands, who are without their boyfriends, and who, when even situations were bettered, when they come back to the Southern Cameroons, the situation is a different story. The situation may turn out to be the situation between Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Father Gerald Drummond, for your presentation. What we can, I think, retain from your presentation is this word that you summarize at the point of view of a widow woman is life of death. I think it was a very poignant presentation. Thank you for your presentation. And I remind you that we need it in a written, in typed format. so as to make a booklet to be sent to the special procedures mandate holders. So we need it before 23rd of 23rd. Is it right, Bosco? I think we need it before
27.
27th of because we are today 23rd. So we it's good if you can make a written presentation of your speech and send us before 27th of June. Thank you very much. And I also have to remind the coming speakers that you have 10 minutes each speakers, and after at the end of the presentation we'll have if people who want to who are there they want to react, you can also ask questions or give your opinion about this event. So our next speaker would be Shirin Zeda. To introduce Shirin, she is the founder and executive director of Kurdish Refugee Relief Foundation. She recently co-authored an article in the Yale Journal of International Affairs highlighting the crimes against humanity that Turkey is committing against the Kurds in Afrin. Shirin has been published on platforms like the Wall Street Journal and has spoken on national platforms like NPR and NBC.
Hi, thank you for the warm introduction. Sorry, were you still talking?
Shirin, please, we are waiting for your presentation. The floor is yours. My phone was cut because I had a call. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. I think when your phone got caught, I thought you wanted me to speak, so I started talking.
Yeah, we are waiting for your presentation. Thank you, Shirin.
Okay, thank you for the warm introduction. My name is Shirin. Today, I'm going to go over the effects that international conflicts have had on women's security, specifically within northeastern Syria. For the past 2 years, I've been working on documenting the war crimes that Turkish proxy forces have committed against Kurdish civilians inside Syria. And the ramifications of these war crimes usually focus or have the biggest ramifications on women populations and girl populations. And when I've conducted my interviews, I've interviewed girls as young as 12 years old, and I've interviewed women as old as 80 years old. And the consistent theme has been that they've been persecuted based on their gender. And there's a couple of classifications that I think are especially important when discussing how gender and the status of not having a man in your life, so in this case being a widow, puts you in an especially vulnerable situation. So in one of my interviews, women who in Afrin, which is inside Syria, women who don't have a husband or a partner are especially vulnerable to kidnappings from proxy forces. So for example, one of my interviewees was walking with her daughter on a street on a random Tuesday and was kidnapped by Turkish proxy forces. There were several allegations as to why she was kidnapped, but one of the factors was that she was alone. She was alone with her daughter, and she was in Turkish custody for over 6 months. And what she described inside the prison was horrific. There was 2 floors. She was on the 2nd floor, and she would explain how every day a Turkish soldier would come in and choose which girl that he would want to take downstairs. And there was essentially nothing, there was nothing that these women and girls could do when they were either inside Turkish custody or outside Turkish custody inside the greater city. This is an aspect of sexual violence that a lot of women experience, especially in countries and cities that are war-torn. There's also, and I think the speaker before me mentioned this, the economic aspect of it. So when a woman has no partner in these countries, they're often left to fend for themselves in terms of obtaining economic stability. And in this case of Afrin, what happens to a lot of these women is their land is confiscated. And in the city, olive trees are essentially the biggest source of livelihood for these women. And in the past 5 years, most of the olive trees and lands have been confiscated, essentially pushing these women outside of the borders of the city, forcing them to flee to unknown territories because they have no source of livelihood and they have no capacity to make a sustainable living. And this economic oppression is often overlooked when talking about how women are targeted, how women who are by themselves are specifically targeted. And this is specifically, I believe through my research, an especially important factor when trying to figure out how to offer sustainable solutions to this conflict. In addition to the economic factor, there's also the religious factor. So inside Syria right now, there are several extremist groups that have essentially taken over power because the central government doesn't have power. And inside of Afrin, there is proxy forces that are linked to ISIS groups. And this has posed a detrimental effect towards Kurdish women because Kurdish women have historically been a secular group. We've seen this in the past 6 years in the Kurdish fight against ISIS. It was the most effective global coalition to fight ISIS ever. And one of the reasons behind that was the secular background of the Kurdish people, and especially Kurdish women. You would see a lot of Kurdish women weren't veiled. They were usually wearing, still conservative clothing for Syria, but nowhere to the extent what you're seeing now within ISIS-controlled territories. But what we're seeing now is completely different. These women are forced to cover up. They're either forced to wear a veil or they're forced to wear an entire burqa. It depends on the territory that they're, the territory that's being controlled by which Islamist group. And this control over a woman's body is another aspect of how on International Widows Day, how women are consistently being controlled through different avenues. In addition to forcing women to veil and cover up, there is now a concentrated attempt to radicalize the youth. One of the most important roles that women play in these societies is child rearing. And what we're seeing now is these schools that are being set up by Turkish NGOs or proxy groups that are propelling an Islamist ideology, an ideology that before their presence wasn't discussed often. And this, extreme Islamist ideology is contributing to further oppression of women who are considered to be alone in these societies because they don't have a partner, or again, because they're a widow. And so these three factors are especially important in discussing how to create sustainable solutions to empower women who are in vulnerable positions, especially in societies or in cities like Afrin, in countries like Syria. I'm looking forward to answering any questions if anyone has any questions at the end of this panel discussion. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen to my explanation on how this is affecting women inside Syria.
Thank you very much, Shireen, for your lovely presentation. You exposed the problems in three different ways: economical and religious, how we say it, segregation, or shall we say it, discrimination of widow women or women living who were even forced to wear burqa. So that was quite, I think, how to say, astonishing to hear this sort of practices still being enforced now. I think, surely the people may want to ask you some questions, as you are a field worker, because you say that you are going to interview women even in their captivity. So I'm sure that people who are listening to this, to your presentation, would want to ask you questions at the end, but we will reserve it for the end. So our next speaker is waiting, and it is none other than our dear friend, Mr. Bosco Mariadas. I don't know if we really need a presentation of him, an introduction for him, as he is very familiar to many of us. Bosco Mariadas is the international coordinator of Global Tamil Movement, and he is being a source of inspiration for many youngsters and even not youngsters who are into human rights activists. I welcome Mr. Bosco Mariadas to give his speech.
Yeah, good evening for Europeans. Good night for Asian people, and also good morning for American people, American and Canadian people. So just I'm going to talk about the UN mechanism for protection on women human rights, especially gender-based discrimination at international level, because the problem is there are many mechanisms with the UN system, but we don't use it. I mean, unfortunately, from the years 2000, even before, from the Beijing conference in 1995, I think, there are a lot of change, because before 1995, the right to self-determination of the people who seek for their right to self-determination and the women who seek for their right to self-determination were more present with the UN mechanism. But after the Beijing conference, there was less and less, and also because of the massive activity of the Western organization who focused the UN Women Rights Network toward the gender-based violence, and also about the internal problem. They don't want to talk about the nation's issue. So that's why even though there is the possibilities, but we don't use it. So just I want to make, because I didn't get the time to prepare all the slides, and also as we don't have much time, I prefer to make a small briefing and the importance of the working with the UN Women Human Rights Protection System. So the first, I'm going to give a small briefing, because I don't know if you follow, but the woman issue, it was from the beginning. It's really started with the ECOSOC. There is a specific statute on women, and unfortunately, the same issue is that we don't use it properly. So then there was many international conference in 1989 and 1999. There was many international conference with the women, civil society, and also with the state party, and they make some kind of recommendation. And so with that, we created the CEDAW in 1992. Then there is the UN Declaration on Violence Against Women and Girls in 1993. After that, there is the Beijing Declaration and Platform Action. It's the Beijing. It's very important because there are 12 main topics on that Beijing Declaration. I will talk to you about it in the details after that. And also there is special rapporteurs. I mean, with the UN Human Rights Council special procedure, among 44 mandate holders, 44 thematic mandate holders, there are about 5 to 6 mandate holders who are focused on women issues. So it's very important also to work with them. One of them it's the special report on violence against women. Then after that, there is the unit to end violence against women campaign, which was held by the United Nations in 2008. After that, even before that, there was also the Millennium Goal. So they also fix it in Millennium Goal, the important to respect the women rights issue. After that, there is the Sustainable Development Goal. And also there is many aspects or many among the 17 among the 17 Sustainable Development Goal, there are about nearly 6 to 7 sustainable development goal are including the elimination of violence against women. So then after that, there is the CSV in 2013, but it was, I mean, it's not new. The Committee on Women Affairs, it's not new. It was from the ECOSOC committee. Yeah. So there is also specifically UN Women. It's one of the agency of the UN, which was started in 2010. So we can use that with by sending to the reports for different committee, and also we can create a group of civil society for the nation under occupation. Because there are a lot of groups in a group of civil societies which formed. So we, with the Global Tamil Movement, our goal is to create a movement with the civil society for the nation under occupation. So we can make women situation under occupation in a group of the NGOs with the UN Women, and we can participate to different meetings and send reports. And also there is the annual conference. So it's very important to have our presence for that. Unfortunately, last February there was last March there was the conference of this year, and there was not much discussion regarding the issue of the women under occupation. So which we need to focus, and this is what I invite all of you to do. After that, you have as I explained before, there was the Beijing platform. It's very important, and as you can see, there is the women and armed conflict. So and human rights of women. Those are those 2 points among those 12 are very important to take awareness regarding the situation of the women under occupation. So I really invite you to participate and send the documentation regarding Beijing platform action. But Beijing Beijing platform action, it's like, for example, it's like Durban Declaration for racial discrimination, or Vienna Declaration for the right to self-determination. So that's why it's very important to all the people who want to be focused on women issue. It's very important that you take initiative to send reports and organize side events like this, and to send to the people. So I think there was for example, today there was one assistant of the special reporter who was there. I think he's no more there. Okay. So just forgive the important that also we can include the violence against women, the girl child. So I mean, this kind of point, I mean, among those among those 12 points, we can use 4 of them. And really, it's very important to make as much possible of reports. Everything is based on reports. After that, you have the Commission on Statute of the Woman from ECOSOC Committee. So this is also very, very important, the Commission on the Statute of the Woman. For example, as the Beijing Declaration or the Beijing Platform, the Commission on the Statute of the Woman have the same prerogative regarding the woman and occupation. We can, there are different points that we can focalize and also send them the report. And also it's very, I mean, it's not easy because, you know, we have to write a lot, but it's very, very crucial to send the reports for that. And the Commission on the Statute of the Woman at the ECOSOC Committee, it's about, there is the conference about 2 times per year. So we have to see the dates and follow that. After that, After that, you have the United Nations Universal Periodic Review on Human Rights. So this is also every 4 to 5 years. All the countries around the world are reviewed by the human rights. All the more than 70 treaties and the UN mechanisms are reviewed under UPR, so including the Statute of the Woman. So that's why it's also important to participate on that. And you have, I mean, now I'm going to resume all of this. You have the UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, especially women and children. And you have the women and the Millennium Goal Developments. I had talked about that before because, you know, about the earlier year of the 2000, the United Nations created the Millennium Development Goal, and they include a lot about the women issue on that. So we need to use that. And you have the Special Rapporteur against women. Yeah, I already talked about that. And you have the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. This is very important. This is where you can not only make a statement, send a statement, but also make the complaint. Each woman who are victims of the violation, they can make the complaint with the CEDAW mechanism. After that, you have the working group on the issue of the discrimination against women and girls. So this is also it's the UN Special Procedure mandate. So it's very, very important to use that. Yeah. Then you have the Committee of the Expert Follow-up of the mechanism of the Belém do Pará Convention. It's really important that this committee, they explore regarding specifically the woman labor issue. So it's very important to use that. And you have the group of experts on action against violence against women and domestic violence. This is specifically for all the women who are, for example, suffering in the Middle East countries, for example, we can use this specific group of experts. And then you have the African Commission Human Rights and People Rights Special Rapporteur on the right of the woman in Africa. So, for example, our friends from Southern Cameroon, you can make complaint to him. And there is two commission in Banjul, I think it's in Gambia. And they also they also take the complaint and make awareness. And people who are living in America, you have the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights Violation. So I really summarize it. So if you, as I said, it's very important the people ask question, then we can reply it. So feel free to ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Bosco Manidas, to give us all your knowledge from the United Nations to the European Commission and all these difficult things that you have learned from your experience and from your scholar years. Thank you to make this available to ordinary people like us. So I think people who are watching it can ask you questions at the end if they want any clarification. And furthermore, what we, as a spokesperson of Global Tamil Movement, I can invite each and everyone to come to join hands with us, with Bosco Manidas, to file complaints, as he said, using these mechanisms, which are very important and which are still available to us, even if it seems very difficult. It remains still available if we use it in a proper way with people who are who can connect to this very easily, like Bosco Manidas. Thank you, Bosco, for your presentation. And our next speaker would be Princess Dora. So to introduce Princess Dora Achan-Gorim, which is her official name, but we are pleased to call her Princess Dora because we have been acquainted with her for quite a few years, shall we say, and we are very familiar. I mean, Tamils from Global Tamil Movement and our Partnership Association all know Princess Dora very well for her very unique presentations on each time she makes a intervention. So we again have the pleasure to welcome her on this event. Princess Dora hails from Southern Cameroon. She is a human and women's rights advocate. She is an exile. She's living in exile in Belgium. She holds a master's in marine sciences and a postgraduate degree in weather and climate modeling. So, Princess Dora, welcome to this event. Princess Dora, can you unmute and start your presentation?
Oh, okay, sorry. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we hear you, and I think everyone is able to see your screen sharing now.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. So I wanted to start by saying thank you so much. I'm very happy to be part of this presentation on this very important day, and I am also part of the Tamis and the people who we are all under foreign occupation. I want to talk about some cases of the Southern Cameroons. They are really, I can't exhaust all of them, but I just want to go on and see some of the sufferings. So about the women, the widows in Southern Cameroon. Yeah, please, can you go to next slide, please? Next slide, please. Okay, so the Southern Cameroon is located in the armpit of Africa. That's the Southern Cameroon there, and it is tiny territory sandwiched between Nigeria and the Republic of Cameroon, that is the Southern Cameroons. And it is really in a strategic position because it's in the Gulf of Guinea, where there's a lot of activity and indirect contact with the Atlantic Ocean. That is the territory. Please next. Next, please. Yeah, so the problem of the Southern Cameroon started, and it's something that has been a conflict that has been built from the foundation of this nation in 1961. There was a problem in the Southern Cameroons, and the Southern Cameroons, please, can you go back to that slide, please? The Southern Cameroon had a problem with its sovereignty, and it was being handed over to the French Cameroon. So I don't want to go into a lot of political issues, but I just want to move on with, like, this conflict actually exploded in 2017, and that was when the people rose up. Just a common protest, people making a simple protest appealing to the government of La République du Cameroon that has become a kind of a colonizer or an assimilator, to let them go, to look at reforms concerning the teachers and the lawyers. And it escalated into some kind of like wild fights, killings, looting. Father Jerry has already said a lot about it. So that was the problem. And it led to this kind of refugees in Nigeria. So many refugees, many people in the bushes, more than 2 million people missing in bushes. Some are dead. There are some in prisons, some in neighboring Nigeria, some as refugees in La République du Cameroon, in Ghana. In fact, the internally displaced are very high, with over 30,000 deaths. So that is something that happened in the Southern Cameroons. This is the latest report as per 20th of June, World Refugee Day, 20th June 2021. So the Southern Cameroons has a lot of problems with widows because of this conflict. Like Father Jerry has said, all the previous speakers have spoken. A lot of problem. Who is a widow? A woman with a deceased husband, a woman whose husband is missing, a woman whose husband is of blessed memory, of late. Many people will say farewell salute. Farewell salute is like, okay, your husband is of blessed memory, sleep well, good night. That is what happens. So those are some of the pictures of widows in the Southern Cameroon. Yeah, please, can you proceed to the next slide, please? The truth is that most often, this women's role in the household, in the society, in the community has been changed. So basically, we are talking about a fatherless generation, because either your husband is dead or he's trying to put up to fight against the La République brutality, like a militia or a kind of a guerrilla fighter, or your husband has disappeared for the past 5 years. That's from 2017, November 2017, to the present date, and it's still a continuous process, or your husband is nowhere to be found, or your husband is probably a military man who got you raped. So those are the kind of things that happen in the Southern Cameroons. So the rules of women or widows have changed. You have many young women who are widows. So they thought that a widow is somebody who is above the age of 55, 60 years. Is no longer a myth that you can believe in. It is just like a kind of a story, a fairy tale. And that is what has happened. So these women are in the society. Their role, their social role and economic role has changed, because it differs with cultures and religions. And also, it also differs with like respect to the kind of responsibilities they have to handle. They have all the husband's dependents are automatically people now dependent on the widow. And many people think that in most instances, somebody's husband could be shot. And then people believe that you are a bad woman, you are a witch, you have a spare, you're an agent of ill luck or a misfortune. You are an unwanted burden to this family. So those are the kind of things that are being spoken of to widows. So those are very, very hurtful things. You are morally depressed because you do not know your husband. Maybe you were raped. You don't even know whether he's dead or alive. You don't even know who the person was. So those are the kind of things. And worst case scenario is that at times some of the children or the homes or the possessions of your late husband is being taken away from you by your late husband's family. So those are the kind of things that are very, very common. Please, can you proceed, please? Next. So like I said, widows are in various categories. And the truth is that most of them live in forests. Some of them live in bushes. It is not just a bush like in a country that is just like a grass, a country that has savanna or grass. No, it is, most of it is in the forest, like in the southern zone, it is part of the Congo forest. Very thick, dark forest with a lot of wild animals, with a lot of pythons. These women have hatches there that they have built, some kind of thatch huts with children. Children are not going to school. Those are the plight of widows. You will bear with me that if you're a mother, you understand that a young child, let me say boy, a young boy or a young girl between the ages of the teenage age, they need a lot of parental guidance, especially high support from the father. But then these women are in this forest. So there's a lot going on that cannot be explained. And that is what happens, so it's painful. And I want to talk about foreign occupation. Is when an invading a foreign country begins to control a certain territory. And that has been the case of Southern Cameroon from 1961, according to Article 42 of the Dehekal regulations. So what are the kind of pictures you see in countries that have this kind of foreign occupation on the territory? That is a woman with some militiamen demanding for a ransom. That's the plight of a woman. Those are military people, Rapid Intervention Force of La République du Cameroon. In French, they call them B. If you look behind them, you can see a young man that has been killed. That is the pain of a woman who has nothing to show for. She doesn't have a husband. She doesn't have a son. And her daughter has been raped. Yeah, please, can you proceed to the next? Thank you. Yeah, so these women are in the bush, and literally you can see a very sick mama with a very young baby and a little boy. So that is the situation. No access to health care, no access to sanitation, even the traditional practices of home bringing, home care, child care, basic health, hygiene. There is nothing that these people have. So even reproductive and sexual health care or basic knowledge that has to be impacted to the next generation cannot be given, because this woman is probably here and her daughter is nowhere to be found, and she probably ran for her own life and she is caught up in the forest and she's lying there, and maybe she may die and the babies may be there for thanks to a passerby. So those are the kind of things that are very, very traumatizing and emotional. Yeah, please, can you move to the next slide? Please, next. The next is sexual violence. I just took this capture, this headline of a newspaper, the Guardian Post. The date is there so that it is clear. That is how sexual abuse, this is the report on the Guardian Post, mass rape and murder of 610 women. And mind you, this can just be the tip of an iceberg. It can be just like 1/4 or 1/10 of what has happened, because there are many women who have been raped, forced into prostitution, some trafficked, some forced into getting pregnant, forced into terminating the pregnancy. By even when there is a conflict, it is something that is common in conflict zones, not only by the military, because 95% of these acts are by the military, and 5% is always people trying to settle scores. So widows have been raped. Mothers who are above the age of 65, we have reports of that, have been raped. So these are very terrible things. So pose a lot of problem to women. So they are tortured psychologically. A lot of things are going on that are not nice. Yeah, please, can you proceed to the next one? Next slide. There is this aspect of freedom of movement. It has been denied. The next slide, please. Freedom of movement has been denied because when people cannot move, they have no access to any public services, be it medication, be it humanitarian support, or social, or any kind of social amenities or social assistance. So the women normally are the backbone of their homes. They have to help their families to get food, to get water. They need wood to cook, but there is no freedom. So as such, they are confined to the same place. Please, you can go back to the previous slide. If you look at the fee report as of June 2021, you will see a map there, and you will see the various reports about, the map on your left-hand side. You will see the various reports of the various regions in the southern Cameroon. That's exactly an extraction of the map of the southern Cameroon, with all the killings, all the attacks, and the barbaric activities of the military. And on the right, you can see women trying to cross over to they want to try to cross over to Nigeria, but these are the neighboring villages. You can see the barbarous activities. The Guardian Post always brings up this kind of news. I just wanted to, not to crop out the headline, but to let it be there so that people can see it. And that is what happens in neighboring villages. Over 500 villages have been razed to ashes. And remind you, the African Man's Museum is in his house. All the arts and craft are kept in their houses. So not only houses are being burned down, or not only people are being felt traumatized or feeling emotional, but that is the scenario on the ground. Yeah, please, can you proceed to the next slide, please? When it comes to food and essential household items, you realize that, please, next slide. Yeah, the next slide tells us about the woman being the manager of the home that provides food. Most of them are farmers and they need wood to cook their food. But then the military is not only after their lives, but the military also steals from their farm. That's military man enjoying or getting, stealing from somebody's farm. That's bananas. And also they kill animals. Sometimes they just destroy all the crops. So there is no food. That is the plight of a woman who has labored. Some of them manage to farm, and then that is what the military does, destroy all the crops or steals the foodstuff, so that there's a lot of hunger. Thank you. Please, next slide. The next one talks about a lot of displacement and shelter. You can see burning of houses and women wailing. Most of them, their barns where they store their grains like maize is in their houses. So this is the military on the right side setting. Pardon? Okay, thank you. They set fire in the houses, so the houses have been razed to ashes. There is nothing, and also the grain has been burned to ashes. So that is it. So this makes the women now with a lot of traits of kidnapping, killing, rape, torture. People are always on the move. So people are just moving from place to place. That is what happens. So people are migrating and they're leaving behind their lands and their possessions, something they may never come back to it again. Yeah. Please, can you go to the next slide? Personal safety is not guaranteed in the southern Cameroons. So personal safety is not something that they can talk of. You are not safe. What people on the right hand side, you can see a woman holding a bullet. That is what she's thinking about her children. Flying bullets are very common. So any stray bullet can pick you up, or even babies have been picked up. A little child of about 4 months old, because she is a southern Cameroonian and she was asleep in their house, received 8 bullets on the head by a military man who break into the door. Those are the kind of pathetic situations. In the center, that's a father of a home who is a barber in his shop, and he was pulled out of his shop. They call him Sam Sawyer, was beheaded. So that is another nightmare for another woman, a widow too. On the left hand side, it is a man, a man who struggled to take care of his neighbor's child, but then the house was razed to ashes, and that's a baby that was burned to ashes. So those were the kind of painful things. What becomes of this widow? Because only the thought of her husband has been killed by these same people, the house was burned to ashes, there is nothing, and the baby has been burned to ashes. It's just a neighbor that picked out a dead baby. So those are the kind of pathetic situations that are in the southern Cameroons. Please, the last slide. Thank you. I want to say that the Southern Cameroon women need protection and assistance. I want to thank Bosco for what he made a presentation on it. But the greatest cry is sustainable peace, which is the priority. With sustainable peace, development projects can be introduced into the women, and there are various forms of development projects that they can assist widows, because majority of those women who are either internally displaced or who are in the forest or who are refugees in Ghana, in Nigeria, or whatever country in West Africa, most of them are widows. That's a pathetic thing. So we have a fatherless generation, and a home without a father is not complete, because a father is the source of restraint in a family in the course of bringing up children. So I want to thank you all, but if you need more information to see about the plight of the Southern Cameroon woman, you can go to this webpage, and AmazonianGenocideLibrary.com. That is where you can see a lot and a bit of pieces of our history and what is there, because it tells you it's an updated platform with the number of deaths, the things that are happening in the territory, the plight of women. So thank you so much. I'll be open to questions, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Princess Dora, for your concise and very elaborated presentation on the plight of Southern Cameroon widows who are facing many challenges and the situation in your country. We have taken notes about all these elements, and we are waiting for your presentation in a written form also, to be able to send it to our UN mandate holders, so that our issue is brought to the international level, so as these women get at last justice. So our next speaker and our last speaker, as you say, the last but not the least, our last speaker is Niruja Tavanesan. To introduce Niruja Tavanesan, she is a long-date Tamil rights activist, but she's not much seen in the public sphere with the Global Tamil Movement. She has just joined us, and we are very thankful to her, because it adds freshness to our team, and we welcome Niruja on this Tamil rights activism as well, hoping that she can bring much more of her to us also. She's a very sweet entrepreneur also, and very beautiful young woman, and we are pleased to have Niruja Tavanesan as our last speaker of this event. Niruja, welcome.
Vanakkam. Thank you, Nishantini Riris. Dear colleagues and friends, thank you to have me as speaker, and it's an honor to be part of speaker on this event with people from Kurdish, Southern Cameroon, and others. The COVID-19 pandemic has strained health system, widened socio-economic gaps, and shifted strategic, political, and funding priorities, all of which disproportionately affect women. The doubled risk of death of a men from occupying forces violation has not only created more widows. For example, when confronted by extreme poverty from being disinherited from land and poverty by occupying forces, with no alternative sources of support, often left without saving or any other income support, widows have been specially exposed to the sudden loss of income, creating immediate and acute financial vulnerability, with serious consequences that range from food insecurity in increased susceptibility to human trafficking. Alternatively, securing widows' inheritance, land, and ownership rights, offering widows protection such as unemployment insurance, cash transfer, food rations, and school barriers could have multi-generational benefits for their families too. Protective measures such as these are especially important for those working in high risk, low paying, or other precarious jobs in the informal economy, in which widows often find themselves as day laborers, temporary workers, and migrant domestic workers. While women are still fighting for their rights in countries that are stayed 100% democratic. They faced systematic racial discrimination by occupying forces. The life of ordinary women from post-development with tight social culture countries are still battlegrounds. Sri Lanka is one of fine example of this situation. I wanted to point out the situation of Tamil War widows from Tamil Elam. Unfortunately, the lives of widows are horrendous in a country where we have no political power and political rights of Tamil community are being denied by those who is in power. Worse still, even women with economically strong background feel that they are destined to suffer or they are forced to live their life as long widow lifelong. It's a natural for community to have widows and widows due to death of aging. That too due to the life expectancy of men is lower than women. But with a population of 9 million Tamils through genocide causing millions of women is a problem that can have unacceptable massive millions of women like widows is a problem that can have unacceptable massive repercussion. Tamil movements are the most affected by planned genocide in Tamil society. There are currently more than 90,000 widows in Elam. Among them, widows who are living alone, her children separated as her refugees. Widows who lost their whole family in the war. The widows who handed over her husband to the government and still fighting and believing that her missing husband is still alive. The topic taken up the UN this year, Invisible Women, Invisible Problems. I would like to post a fitting proposition on this topic. The psychological impact of genocide on widow further exacerbated by cultural and social restriction and economical inequalities. Still, children raised by them are also subjected to psychological stress. Some are assertive and some are alternative thinkers. And increase the number of widows in a community means that number of children growing up without father is many times greater. This can cause a massive change in social psychological balance. Example, I was raised as a firm, independent woman in a fatherless family by my mother. My attitude towards life that I can live my life better without a male partner. I also know that this is a position contrary to normal social norms. All the responsibilities of the father are imposed on the first child of woman who lost her husband in the war. The Tamil community may have survived to some extent due to the family and social responsibility of many Tamil youths. They are admirable. My recommendations are, furthermore, governments should take action to uphold their commitments to ensure that rights of widow as enshrined in international law, including the Convention of Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against women and girls. The Convention on the Rights of the Child, even when national laws exist to protect the rights of widow, weakness in the judicial system of many states compromise how widows' rights are defended in practice and should be addressed. Lack of awareness and discrimination by judicial officials can cause widows to avoiding turning to the justice system to seek reparations. Program and policies for ending violence against widows and their children. Poverty, alleviation, education, and other support to widows all of ages also needed to be undertaken, including the context of action plans to accelerate achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. And thank you, Bosco, Anna, and Nishakat.
Thank you, Neeraja Thavannesan, for your wonderful presentation. It was also a personal and poignant testimony of women who was raised by our widow person. We can see your emotions here, and we are with you, Neeraja, and we are all going to fight for these women to make a better future for and a just future for these women. So we are coming to the end of this event. We thank really from the bottom of our heart all the wonderful speakers who have done a very good job today. And it's a regrettable thing that we couldn't make participate the videos from Tamil, even if we had some chances, but due to some intimidations and some threats, they could not, they don't feel free to come and speak. They fear possible threatenings, which are still a sad reality for the widows and husbandless women who are fighting for the justice for genocide in Tamil Nadu still now. So at this point, I am inviting all of you to have your questions, if you have any, to our speakers, or if you have any observations or remarks or anything to say about this event, you are welcome. And I will also remind people to stay within the framework of this event and not go beyond this. We'll have other forums to speak about that. But today, just I'm reminding you that we are speaking about International Women Day. And we speak about invisible women and their invisible problems. So if anyone has a question, you can just raise hand or let us know in any way. Anyone wants to take the floor?
I mean, I have just one question because I need more information with Shireen regarding the number of the women who are affected. Can you give us some information, some statistical information?
Yeah, definitely. The number of women specifically in terms of the sexual assault, or in terms of in which context?
Yeah, I mean, I want to know about I mean, in all the different numbers. I mean, for example, how many victims? And I know there was a genocide a few years ago in Afrin, I think.
Right.
And
There's
also
currently happening. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the most recent UN report spoke about how there was at least confirmed of over 30 cases, but as we know, way more than that. So Afrin before the war used to be almost 90% Kurdish, and now it's less than half, it's around 40%, or in the high 30s. And a lot of the men have either been killed, kidnapped, or have left Syria, leaving Afrin to be a predominantly women-dominated city now. In terms of, there's a lot more women than there are men, which has led to what I was previously discussing, which is less protections in terms of financial protections. There's less societal protections because women, as our speakers have highlighted, women who are alone in terms of no husband or partner are seen as vulnerable. I hope that answered your question in terms of the fact that a lot of women who are living in Afrin are living without a husband or a partner.
Yeah, I mean, just I wanted to know in terms of the victims, how the number of the victims, I know that they systematically were raped a lot of women. And also, I wanted to know, because it's very important during the problem regarding just about 2 years ago, I think there was a lot of women who were raped and killed by ISIS, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It was by the Syrian National Army, which is a Turkish proxy force. And the numbers are official. There's official and unofficial numbers, right? But unofficial numbers is in the thousands, because sexual assault and rape is the most common tactic that is used against these women in Afrin. But definitely when I send you guys my report, I can include more statistics in that.
Okay, thank you.
So if anyone have any questions or remarks, you just feel free to.
Thierry?
Yeah. Hi.
Solana.
Hi, I'm Krishan from Sri Lanka, Tamil. Today we are talking about the women, especially the widows. We all are placing what happening there, but what is the solution for them? I don't receive anything from there. I mean, I don't say anything, but I don't have enough. What are the proper solution to them? And Bosco, you said something about the heading or margins. We can use those laws or some other UN mechanism. So how can we use those mechanism? I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that. So can you explain me?
Yeah. So just for give an example, for example, European Union and also American countries, they accepted some term of treaties, and all the countries who violated all those treaties, they make some kind of economical sanction, and also make for example a statement about against that. Also, for the problem is it's for nowadays Kurdish people, they are working a little bit with the EU mechanism, but all others, for example, Tamil people, we don't use. Southern Cameroon people, we don't use it. But there are, for example, at the European Parliament, there are many commission, and they need information. And unfortunately, the people who are victims, they don't send any information. But instead, all the country who perpetrate the genocide or the violence acts, they always come with a lot of reports saying that this is our national action plan and we are doing so and so. So that's why it's very important to use the mechanism. And you have, as I said, at Europe level, really, it's very important to use the European countries. They have, for example, when we talk about the human rights, there is the many parliament. They have committee on human rights. The many parliament, they have committee on women affairs. So we need to use them. And also all the United Nations mechanism. Unfortunately, until now, as I said, on the victim perspective, specifically the nation who are under occupation, we don't use properly all the system. Until we will not use the, for example, I remember many Israeli company were forbidden by European countries. For example, because the Palestinian, they make some action. They made reports, and also they make some action with the European Union and also European countries. Resulta, you had a list of companies that European Union said you can't make business with the Israeli company, with those companies, because they are under colonization. I mean, those companies are from the colonization part. So this is very important for Tamil people from northern east, for southern Cameroons. You have to use all those mechanisms. Unfortunately, we don't use it. And also, really, I mean, for Sherry, nowadays, because I know that because I was one of the person who was part of the creation when they created the office in Brussels. And Kurdish people, they are very strongly active. So it will be good also if you can make link with them and work together. Really, there are a lot of things to do. And as I said, we need to use all the UN mechanisms and also European Union mechanisms, inter-American, also African mechanisms. Because in Asia, there is not much powerful human rights mechanism. So, but we can use it from European countries and America, and also with the United Nations. Yeah, I think there is the father, Gerald Jumbam. You have to unmute. You have to unmute. No, you have to unmute.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. I raised my hand up actually just to add to what you've said about the solutions, because the question that came up is a very important question, because we can't talk about women. We talk about the widows and without giving some solutions which will help people in one way or the other. And I was proposing some 2 or 3 reasons. And the first one is that what we're doing is already a solution, being the voice of the voiceless. We who have a relative peace and a relative freedom, we have the right. What we are doing is not what we are doing is not, we're not doing this because we are just doing things. It is a right of those who are enjoying some relative freedom to be the voice of their suffering people. So we expect that this information gets out, let people know actually what is happening in Tamil, let people know what is happening in southern Cameroons. That is the first one I will have, that we are the mouthpiece of our people. That's already a solution, because it is better than just sitting like that. This action is important. The next one is the fact of giving hope to our people. Giving hope to our people. A simple telephone call to somebody back home, a simple €1 sent to somebody back home, a widow, a simple a word of encouragement. There is a statement which somebody once said when such situations came to some suffering people. He said, leave all you can. It is a mistake not to leave, because sometimes to leave is very difficult. You will hear them say things are not going. I want to even commit suicide. Encourage them to leave, because there is always hope. When a year passes, there is hope. A year passes, there is hope. And then another one is the issue of fighting, keeping the spirit of determination, of courage, not tiring for the justice, for truth. And before we begin to come into reconciliation and love, the experience is that sometimes those who are free, those who are in the diaspora, they begin entering into this language of love, reconciliation, and all that. Let us help our poor people, the suffering people, those widows who are crying for their fathers and many other troubles. Let us talk first about justice, about truth. Then we can begin to come to reconciliation and love, which will be coming, things which will be coming after. And then the last thing I will say is that in every I am okay, because if you ask such women, how is it? You ask such a woman, how is it? How are things going on? The answer is always, I am okay. I am fine. It's not enough. Find ways to define that I am okay, that I am fine. Always get into it again and inquire how you can help to alleviate that situation of I am fine, I am okay. It is just a way of talking. So that is the little I had to share about the solutions to these problems which our women are suffering, especially the widows, back in those areas where people are seeking for justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Father Jumbam, for your remarks. I think Nirja Thavanesen has something to say. Yes, welcome back, Nirja.
I have a question to Sherin. Sherin, hi. Are you facing any safety issue while you're working on these issues at your country?
Just to clarify,
like
the safety in terms of when I'm conducting, the safety of the women that I'm interviewing?
Yeah.
Right. That's a really good question. It's actually something that I was just talking about yesterday with a couple of my partners, because we're currently starting a new chapter where we're interviewing specifically just women who've experienced sexual abuse from Turkish soldiers. And something that we talked about was, do the women feel safe in talking to us? And oftentimes 50% of the women, or a little bit over half the women, don't feel safe, either due to fear that their name or identity will be released. And if their name or identity is released, the social shame that comes with it and the stigma is too great for them. Also, if they're still in Syria, their phones are being monitored. The internet is really shady. So they aren't sure if they actually have a safe physical space to conduct these interviews. I hope that answered your question. There is a significant amount of fear amongst many of the women that I interview, either it being for their physical safety or social safety.
How you are convincing victims to open up?
So my personal mantra belief is, I actually will never urge any woman to talk about it. Actually, if anything, I'm on the opposite. I tell them, we really don't need to talk about it if you don't want to, because I'm not here to make you go through more trauma when you went through the worst trauma of your life already. I only talk to women who actually reach out to me. I've been doing this work for a couple of years, and I've been publishing on this topic. So people reach out to me often and say, hey, I know this woman living inside Syria who really wants to talk to you. And often I will say, okay, well, are you sure? Because I don't want to talk to her if she's not 100% sure, because that's not my job, right? To ever make any woman feel, or it's no one's job. No one should ever ask any woman to talk about it unless they want to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Thank you for the question and the answer as well. Princess Dora has a remark or a question.
Yes, thank you so much, please. I just wanted to say that it is very difficult, sometimes like the case of Southern Cameroon. I spoke about a lady because she is a widow. Her husband died. She found the dead body of her husband decomposing. That was the scenario. That was enough trauma for her. She left a baby of about 4 months, and the military entered the house by breaking into the door, and the little baby of 4 months old received 7 bullets on the head. Baby died in her sleep. And the question is that, how do we get in contact with her? So when we tried reaching out to her, the moment the lady had to say, this is what happened, she wanted to make a narration, the military was not happy. So what they did was they were pursuing this woman through the forest. She had to run through the forest because that was what happened to her. They wanted to kill her. Killing her is silencing the story. In that same neighborhood, there was an old woman too. Somebody had to report, but it's just the videos or the pictures they can send out to us, because she was about 80 years old. When the army came, they were like practicing their Scotch Ed policy. If they can't get the guerrillas, the fighters, what do? They burn down everything. So they burn a house and with a woman who is the senior citizens, very old, of age 82. There are many cases of that, 81, and some were like a blind man of about 60, 63 years old, a madman. So you see, these things are very, very real and very, very painful. Those are the kind of things that happens. Some of us were widows who cannot run when the army showed up. Another thing is that the dilemma is a lot of torture, because you find women who are in their mid-40s and grandmothers who are of age, let me say 70, they are grave diggers because the young men, many of them have died. So widows are digging graves to bury their children. That is why this day is very important, because we have to think of how we can do it. And I'm glad Bosco gave us a lot of organizations we can write to, and also the one that funds activities of women, why we seek for sustainable peace and development, because no matter whatever kind of help we want to give them in this zone that is still under foreign occupation with all this brutality, there is nothing that we can really do to improve their life, because there can never be development without peace. And we can never talk about peace without justice, because many women want justice for their children. Yeah, and I want to just give an example of a guy who used to send us pictures from the university. When the army went into the university campus, their target were the young girls to rape them, get them out of the hostel. To me, somebody like me, I was motivated to fight for freedom because of what I saw. A young lady in the same university that I went to was pulled out of the hostel, and they threw these little girls in the mud, in very thick mud, and they roped them there. They'll ask a woman who is a pregnant woman to swim inside of a mud. You know, the southern Cameroon is it's in the forest zone, and when it rains, some of the places are like lowlands or plains. So you see, this guy had to send us these pictures, but the moment they became conscious of it, they want to take the life of this guy. And if they get any photographs, or you trying to use a camera or a phone, they will kill you. So that is just how the army is. It's difficult. I can understand what our colleague from Syria is talking about, because people are running. When they are passing, it is run for your life. If you have to hide somewhere, the pictures, many things or worse things, I believe, must have happened. But there is nobody who can get this on video or camera or like a picture and relate them to us, because there are horrible things that have happened. Sometimes you find the head of a man on the street, a man's head in the street. That is just enough of commotion. On a hot day, that's just how the street begins to everything scatters. So those are the kind of things that it's not easy. It's a difficult thing, but we need to still keep pressing on and hoping and pushing for sustainable peace, pushing for referendum, pushing for fact-finding mission to get into the various regions that we come from Tamis, the area of the Tamis, the Tamil regions in Syria, in southern Cameroon, and the Kurdish, everywhere. We need to push for that, because many people need to get reality. Some people may not want to tell you that I found a man's head, because what I got in my phone was like an alert, a photograph, a man's head at this hour in this place. What is really surprising, you will be scared, because that's the kind of picture somebody is sending to you via WhatsApp. So I want to really, I'm happy, but I'm glad that we are here speaking for the voiceless. Thank you.
Thank you, Princess Dora. Is anyone having any remarks to add? Questions to ask our wonderful speakers of today's event?
I think we can close.
Okay. Thank you very much to all of our speakers and to all the participants and to all the people who are watching this event through live via our YouTube channel, which is Global Tamil Movement. We will be announcing your next events in the months to come, or even the weeks to come, because we organize a sort of side events through Zooms. I'm just reminding to you that this event will be also published as a booklet so as to be handed over to the special procedure mandates inside UN, and also it will be sent to many more relevant authorities so as to make a sense to this event. And as someone was asking for a solution, this is also a way to the solution. So thank you for your participation, and I wish you a very pleasant day on this International Women's Day. We should give them more than one day to speak about their grievances and their plight. Let's be united into solidarity for women and men and children. Let's hope for a bright future. Nandri, vanakkam to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.